You know, one of my absolute favorite shows on television is really part of another show, the 7 o'clock report, Sunday nights with Harris Faulkner on Fox. But it's not Harris Faulkner that's the draw. It's three guys. Doug Schoen, who was a pollster for Bill Clinton. Pat Goodell, a pollster for Jimmy Carter. And both of those guys, Democrats, and John leboutillier, former congressman in Long Island, and he's the only Republican. And these three guys are terrific. They're on roughly 20 minutes toward the end of that report on Sunday night. You ought not to miss it. It may be on other times, too, and we'll find out. So stay tuned as we talk to a very well-informed guy about what's going on out there in the world of politics.
Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Always a pleasure to have John leboutillier on the show. John, how are you?
Kevin, I am great, and I'm better now that I hear your wonderful, friendly voice, which I've loved for years, and it's great to hear from you.
Well, I can see you didn't graduate from politician to statesman very easily, did you? Listen, John, I really do love that show with you three guys. It's on other times, too, isn't it? Isn't it on other times?
Well, it's on live on Sunday night at 7:30 New York time, which is inside the show you were describing, which I think is called Fox News Report, Fox News Weekend or something. Mm-hmm. And then we do another live version Monday morning on a whole other network. It's an internet network called foxnews.com. And at 10:30 in the morning for half an hour, we do another show. We just did it yesterday morning. We did it.
Okay, now, the only thing that bothers me about this Sunday show is that there are too bloody many commercial breaks with Fox. Yeah. Does that happen? Yeah. Does that happen on this other show on the internet?
No.
Oh, good.
No, there's one 1-minute break halfway through the show. The rest is all us. No Harris Faulkner, just Doug, Pat, and John for half an hour talking politics. So you are a political junkie like I am. I recommend you try to watch this thing on Monday at 10:30 and see if you don't like it.
Oh, I'm sure I will. Because last Sunday night, Miss Faulkner, whatever, she asked you a wonderful question, and then when you were about to answer, and I don't remember which question it was, she said, well, we have to take a break right now, and then she never got back to it. So, okay, I'm going to throw out a couple ideas to you now. I just want to get your reaction, right?
Okay.
You think Chris Christie will be impeached, true or false?
True.
Why?
Well, the Democrats are out to get him. They have full power in the Assembly and the state Senate in Trenton. They have the U.S. Attorney as a Democrat. That's the federal investigator. They've hired a prosecutor to be the special counsel to the Assembly Committee. His last pelt that he put on his wall was Rod Blagojevich. They are out to get Christie, and I think there's something to work with there. I think Christie has overstepped his bounds with political payback and retribution, and he's ticked off a lot of people, and they're out to get him with the full support of the National Democrats, because Chris Christie is the only Republican, as we know in the polls at the moment, who has even approached being competitive with Hillary for 2016. Now, that's a long way off, but if they knock him out now and get rid of him, they've eliminated one of their big threats down the line.
Okay, but now in the world of politics, which is not a pleasant world, I don't know why you'd want to be in it, to be honest with you, John. In that world, isn't payback kind of the way they play the game?
Well, yeah, there's legal payback and there's illegal payback. And what they're looking at here is illegal payback. I'll sum it up in one phrase: using government resources to screw over your political opponents.
Okay.
That you cannot do. Well, and that is often illegal. You can use political resources to screw over your political enemies. For instance, if you don't want to make a donation to somebody, or you withhold campaign monies to a guy that didn't agree with you. That's okay. But once you cross the line and use government projects to reward or punish someone politically, you're getting into big trouble.
All right. Christie was not the first choice of, what's the term I want to use? Conservative Republicans, Tea Party.
Republicans don't take the guy.
They're not going to feel bad about this. In fact, I never thought the guy would make it through the primaries anyway. But let's move on to something else. Talking about scandals and payback. On the Sunday TV show, Benghazi, IRS, and the other multiple Obama scandals were brought up. And I think it was you who pointed out, may have been Goodell or Schoen, I don't know, that the Republicans in the House want John Boehner to investigate this, and he won't do it. Is that a fact? He won't do it?
That's true. 179 Republican congressmen have signed onto the bill creating a select committee to investigate Benghazi. 90 days. It's all it's called for. It's already paid for. The funds that are there, the staffs have already been hired from other committees. It's not going to cost anything to do a top-to-bottom, in public, complete investigation of why these 4 people died, what went wrong, who lied about it, the whole bit. And for some reason, the Speaker will not agree to this. And we made the contrast with the Christie thing. The Christie thing, in 8 days, they started an investigation, hire a special counsel, issued 20 subpoenas. They're going after this guy with guns a-blazing. On the Republican side in the House, they won't do anything about anything. Won't do Benghazi, the IRS, the NSA, the subpoenas of the reporters' phone records. They won't investigate anything.
All right, now the big question, why not?
I think they're gun-shy after a succession of mistakes. The impeachment of Bill Clinton, which ended up making the Republicans end up looking bad. The shutdown of the government this past October 1st, which really hurt the Republicans. And the general animus that they've shown towards Obama hasn't helped the Republicans. It hasn't helped. And they're so gun-shy of being criticized and called racist and all. They've decided, just don't do anything. Don't investigate. Sit off to the side and let Obamacare rot out the Democrats, and they'll lose the Senate in November. And then we'll have this conversation a year from now, and it'll be a different political world.
Well, it's certainly true that even if they found Obama asleep at the switch, which he apparently was in Benghazi, and if they find out that he was behind the IRS persecution of innocent Americans, they couldn't do anything about it because the Senate is strictly Democrat. They'd have to have a Republican Senate. So they have a point there. But on the other hand, aren't the American people saying, we want to know, especially with the IRS? Everybody hates the IRS. You won't find anyone standing up defending the IRS because they take your money away.
That's right.
Well,
by the way, you go back to Watergate. On the White House tapes, Nixon mused frequently about using the IRS to screw over his political enemies. And he never had the IRS do it. He talked about getting them to do it, but he never did it. But just for talking about it,
he got in trouble.
He got in trouble, and one of the articles of impeachment was on the misuse of the IRS. Okay, here's President Obama. His administration is using the IRS to spite his political enemies, the Tea Party, the conservative groups, and pro-Israel groups. They also got nailed by the IRS. And not a peep out of anybody. And the Republicans really haven't gone after this thing, Kevin. They haven't looked at it and gotten mad about it. And they could have and used it as another reason to torpedo Obamacare, because the IRS is involved inside Obamacare with administering the mandate. And we could have discredited the IRS completely with this thing and nailed Obama, too, and we didn't do a thing.
We're talking to John leboutillier, a former congressman, now a observer of the Times, which can't be very pleasant when you think about it. But he's also on Fox Television every Sunday night, part of the 7 to 8 report with Harris Faulkner. And they have their own show. He, Doug Schoen, and Pat Goodell have their own show at 10:30 Monday mornings. I'm going to make it a point to see that because you guys are fantastic. I mean, you got 2 Democrats, 1 Republican. You guys all seem to agree that it's rotten in Washington. Let's come back in a moment and talk about what your solutions are. I think I have some hints there from what you said, but we'll come back in a minute. One of the people I really look forward to interviewing, and I try to do it several times a year. We'll probably do it more this year than we do normally because it's an election year. Former Congressman John leboutillier, now a TV personality, along with Doug Schoen and Pat Goodell. They are Democrats. He's a Republican. They're on Fox News every Sunday night, beginning roughly 7:30. You guys, if I'm not mistaken, I think you 3 guys would love to see a third party because you don't have a lot of faith in either party. Correct?
Yeah, but at least a third candidate for president that could lead to a third party, or the third party could come along like the Republicans did and usurp the Whigs, bring the Whigs and the Democrats and the know-nothings and all into their party. So it was still 2 parties, but it changed one of the 2 parties fundamentally, and that's what needs to happen here. And I really think 46% of people in the new Gallup poll identify themselves as independent, not Republican, not Democrat. And that's almost half the country, right? So they've been going up. People who identify themselves as conservative, and people who are Republican or Democrat are going down. It's down to 29% say they're Democrat, and only 22% say they're Republican, which is the lowest ever recorded.
Well, you know, given how the main media trashes the Republican Party day and night, night and day, it's a wonder they got 22%. Okay, let me move on.
The one,
yeah, right. Cole Porter. All right, do you remember that old movie with Cary? I think it was Cary Grant, and he was hearing the tom-toms in the background in World War I, something like that. All right, now let me go to localized, if you will, New York State politics. I'm sure you're familiar with a really stupid comment.
I'm leaving already, aren't you?
The stupid comment by Andrew Cuomo that if you're not pro-gay and you're not pro-abortion, I'm putting it positively now. He did it the other way.
Anti-gun.
Yeah. If you're any of those things, get out of New York. There's no room for you. I mean, I never thought this guy was the brightest guy on the street, but where does that leave him with the rest of New York? Or, in fact, do they know about it? You know, I mean, the main media, just like they are in Washington, tend to favor Cuomo. Will the people remember that, do you think?
No. And I think that the only people who care about it are conservatives who don't like him anyway.
Well,
but I think it shows his arrogance, and it's just absurd. But then, you know, I'd like to beat the guy for governor. This year, and I don't think we have a prayer. I mean, there's talk of Donald Trump running against him, which I don't think would ever happen. But every time Trump starts screwing around with this stuff, it sort of freezes everybody else. The Westchester County executive is a pretty attractive candidate, Rob Astorino. He's the serious guy looking at it. But, boy, it's going to be a tough slog between the media being against him and there being very little money given to him And the head of the Republican Governors Association's already done a 180 on him. That's Chris Christie.
What do you mean did a 180? Tell me about the 180. I didn't know about this.
Okay, the 180 was after the election in this past November, Christie becomes head of the Republican Governors Association at a meeting down in Arizona where all the Republican governors went. And Rob Astorino, the Westchester County executive who just himself got reelected, he flies down there to meet with Governor Christie about getting their support for a run against Cuomo. Christie, and this is all in the press down here in the New York metropolitan area, Christie said, we will support you, we'll give you a lot of money for the campaign, blah, blah, blah. Astorino comes back up here to New York, to Westchester, and he tells people about it, and it gets in the press. Christie says he'll support Astorino if he runs, blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, Cuomo calls up Christie. And they have a conversation. Obviously, it's between them. But it got leaked out, obviously, by Cuomo, that Christie assured Cuomo that what he'd heard before in the press was not true, and that they weren't going to be supporting Astorino against Cuomo a lot, and that Cuomo had nothing to worry about. And that type of thing worries me, Kevin, about Christie. It's sort of like I'm endorsing Romney, but I'm hugging Obama. And I don't know which side to trust.
I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of people were bothered by that. One final question for you, and this is not showing my partisan conservatism. It's just a fact. Where the Democrats get control, you see a lot of movement in favor of marijuana, a lot, popular use of it, a lot of movement toward more abortions, a lot of movement to advance the gay agenda. Now, those are not typical middle American views. How is it that they keep getting elected when they're doing... Remember back in 72 when McGovern was torpedoed by his own party for being pro-abortion and pro-amnesty. Remember that?
Yep.
And here we got people pushing marijuana, more abortion, and the gay agenda, however you want to define that. Same-sex marriage, that's another thing. Well, that's part of the agenda. How do they get away with it? I'm curious. What do you think?
Well, I think the public has changed. I think that all these issues. I believe in the public high schools. The kids over time have been indoctrinated about gays, about drugs. I mean, I just think it's become it's still a country that's fiscally conservative. Conservative on defense issues, and the left did not win on that, but the left did win on social issues from the 60s on. They've been winning steadily, and bit by bit they've gotten their way, and I think once the horse is out of the barn, I don't think it's going back in on gay marriage, decriminalizing dope, whatever. I think that stuff is here.
John leboutillier, not the best closing I've ever had in my show. It's not the best news. I think a lot of people would agree. But I think you're right. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll have you back again a lot because this is an election year, and you guys on Fox News, and you in particular, have a lot of interesting things to tell us.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, partner, bye-bye. Okay, partner, bye-bye. Okay, partner, bye-bye.